The text from Adam hit my phone like lightning striking the cockpit. I was somewhere over Kansas, autopilot engaged, coffee growing cold in my cup, when my neighbor's message turned my world upside down. Tall guy just came to see Kelly. She greeted him in lingerie. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at the screen, my hands steady on the controls despite the earthquake happening in my chest. Jason Miller, 41 years old, commercial pilot for Southwest Airlines, married to Kelly for 8 years. Or so I thought. You sure? I typed back, my thumbs moving like they belonged to someone else. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then a photo loaded. My wife Kelly, standing in our doorway wearing the black see-through number I'd bought her for our anniversary, the same one she claimed was too uncomfortable to wear for me. She was smiling at a guy who looked like he bench-pressed small aircraft for fun. That's Troy Banks, Adam's next message read. Personal trainer from Kelly's gym. He's been coming around since Tuesday. Tuesday. I'd been on a 4-day Boston run since Monday. Kelly had kissed me goodbye, told me she'd miss me, promised to water my tomatoes in the backyard. Apparently, she'd been watering more than vegetables. My co-pilot, Martinez, glanced over. Everything okay, Miller? Just peachy, I muttered, switching my phone to airplane mode before I did something stupid like call my cheating wife at 30,000 feet. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my life in the clouds while my marriage crashed and burned on the ground. The flight to Dallas felt like it lasted 17 hours instead of 3. Every minute dragged like we were flying through molasses. I kept thinking about Kelly's laugh, the way she'd scrunch her nose when she was being playful, how she'd steal my flight jackets because they smelled like me. 8 years of marriage, and apparently I'd been flying blind the whole time. Adam was waiting in my driveway when I got home Thursday evening. My neighbor looked like a suburban spy, baseball cap pulled low, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. He'd moved in next door 2 years ago after his divorce, and we'd bonded over weekend barbecues and shared custody horror stories. Turned out he was better at surveillance than I'd given him credit for. How long? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Best I can tell, about 3 weeks. Maybe longer. Adam handed me a flash drive. I've been documenting everything since I caught them Tuesday. Figured you'd want proof. I plugged the drive into my laptop right there in the driveway. The files were organized by date, each one a knife twist in my gut. Photos of Troy's red Jeep in my driveway. Video of Kelly leading him into my house. Timestamps showing he'd been there for hours at a time. There's more, Adam said quietly. I hacked your home security system. You gave me the password last year when you went to Denver, remember? I remembered. Kelly had been scared of staying alone after a break-in 2 streets over. I'd asked Adam to keep an eye on things, given him access to our cameras so he could check on her. The same cameras that had apparently been recording her betrayal in high definition. Show me. Adam opened another folder. The footage was crystal clear. Kelly and Troy in my living room, my kitchen, my garage. They'd used my truck, eaten my food, probably slept in my bed. The final video was dated yesterday. Troy leaving through my back door, Kelly kissing him goodbye while wearing my favorite flight jacket. I'm going to destroy them, I said, the words coming out calm and cold. Both of them. Adam nodded like he'd been expecting this. What do you need? That's when I knew I had a real friend. No lectures about forgiveness, no suggestions about marriage counseling, just a simple question about how he could help me burn down the people who'd burned me first. Information. Everything you can find on this Troy character. Where he works, where he lives, who he owes money to, and keep watching Kelly. I want to know every move she makes. Already on it. Adam pulled out his phone, showing me a notes app filled with details. Troy Banks, 28, works at Muscle Beach Fitness on Elm Street, lives in the Riverside Apartments, drives a 2019 Jeep Wrangler that he's 3 payments behind on, has a side business training clients at their homes for cash under the table. How'd you get all this? His Instagram is public. Plus, I may have followed him to the bank yesterday and overheard a very interesting conversation with a loan officer. I felt the first genuine smile I'd had in days. Adam, you magnificent bastard. Wait, there's more. Your wife's been telling people you're emotionally distant, that you're never home, that she feels neglected. Cassie Morrison from her gym has been spreading it around the neighborhood. Cassie. Kelly's best friend since college, a gossip who treated other people's business like her personal entertainment network. She lived 3 streets over and somehow knew everyone's secrets before they knew them themselves. So, I'm the bad guy in this story? According to Kelly's version, yeah. Poor, neglected wife, husband always traveling, found comfort in the arms of her understanding trainer. Adam's voice dripped sarcasm. Real original story. I closed the laptop and looked at my house. From the outside, it looked perfect. Manicured lawn, fresh paint, the American dream in suburban Texas. Inside, it was a lie wrapped in mortgage payments and shared Netflix passwords. Here's what we're going to do, I said. I'm going to play the clueless husband for a few more days. Let Kelly think she's gotten away with it. Meanwhile, you keep gathering intelligence. I want to know everything about Troy, his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses, and I want to know which neighbors know about this affair. Most of them, probably. Mrs. Henderson from across the street asked me yesterday if you knew about Kelly's fitness instructor. She used air quotes and everything. Perfect. The neighborhood gossip network had already done half my work for me. In a community where everyone knew everyone else's business, shame was a weapon more powerful than any gun. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I'm going to need some help from Randy. Randy Kowalski was my flight mechanic, a guy who could fix anything with an engine and wasn't too particular about asking questions. We'd worked together for 6 years, and he owed me about a dozen favors from times I'd covered his shifts or looked the other way when he'd borrowed airline tools for personal projects. Randy, it's Jason. I need a favor. The kind that requires your special talents and absolute discretion. What kind of favor? Randy's voice was cautious but interested. The kind that involves teaching someone a lesson about respecting other people's property. Ah, that kind of favor. When do we start? Tomorrow night. I'll call you with details. I hung up and looked at Adam. Phase 1 begins now. Kelly thinks she's playing me, but she's about to learn what happens when you mess with a pilot. We're trained to handle emergencies, and this marriage just declared a mayday. Adam grinned. What's phase 1? Reconnaissance. I'm going to let Kelly know I'm home, act like nothing's wrong, and see how good an actress she really is. Then we're going to start applying pressure in places she doesn't expect. I walked toward my front door, keys jingling in my hand. The house looked the same, but everything had changed. Kelly's car was in the garage, lights were on in the kitchen, and I could smell dinner cooking. For a moment, I almost felt bad about what I was planning. Then I remembered the video of her kissing Troy goodbye in my flight jacket, and the feeling passed like turbulence at cruising altitude. Kelly, I'm home, I called out, my voice perfectly normal. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, all smiles and innocent eyes. Jason, you're early. How was Boston? Smooth flight, missed you. I kissed her cheek, tasting lies and betrayal. What's for dinner? Your favorite, chicken parmesan. I thought we could have a quiet night together. Sounds perfect, just like old times. But as I watched her move around the kitchen, chattering about her week and asking about my trip, I was already planning her descent. Kelly had no idea she was about to experience some serious altitude sickness. Friday morning, I woke up next to my wife and felt like I was sleeping with a stranger. Kelly was curled against me, her blonde hair spread across my chest, breathing soft and steady like she didn't have a care in the world, like she hadn't been screwing her trainer in our bed while I was flying passengers to Boston. I slipped out carefully, grabbed my phone, and headed to the kitchen. 3 messages from Adam were waiting. Troy's schedule: Monday, Wednesday, Friday at Muscle Beach, Tuesday, Thursday, private clients, Sundays off. Kelly texted someone at 11:47 p.m. last night. Couldn't see who. Mrs. Henderson wants to talk to you. Says it's important. I made coffee and stared out the kitchen window at Adam's house. He was already up, sitting on his porch with his own coffee mug, reading what looked like a newspaper, but was probably surveillance notes. The man had missed his calling as a private investigator. "Morning, beautiful," Kelly said, padding into the kitchen in one of my old flight school t-shirts. She looked genuinely happy to see me, which made this whole thing even more twisted. "Morning. Sleep well?" "Like a baby. It's so nice having you home." She wrapped her arms around my waist from behind, pressing her face against my shoulder. "I hate it when you're gone." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly, I almost admired the technique. Almost. "I've got the weekend off," I said. "Thought maybe we could do something together. It's been a while." "That sounds wonderful. What did you have in mind?" "How about we invite some neighbors over for a barbecue? It's been forever since we've entertained." Kelly's smile flickered for just a second. "This weekend? Don't you think that's kind of short notice?" "Come on, it'll be fun. We can keep it casual. Just burgers and beer, I'll handle everything." I turned in her arms, looking down at her face. "Unless you have other plans?" "No, no plans. A barbecue sounds great." But I caught the hesitation, the quick calculation behind her eyes. She was probably wondering how to warn Troy to stay away, or maybe figuring out how to sneak in a text session with her trainer boyfriend while playing the perfect wife. "Great. I'll start calling people this morning." After Kelly left for her yoga class, which I now suspected was code for something entirely different, I walked over to Adam's house. He was waiting with a fresh pot of coffee and a manila folder thick with information. "Tell me you've got something good," I said. "Better than good. I've got everything." Adam opened the folder like he was presenting evidence to a jury. "Troy Banks isn't just cheating with your wife. He's cheating on his taxes, his gym membership fees, and probably his rent." The first document was a printout of Troy's social media posts. Photos of expensive dinners, new clothes, a watch that cost more than most people's monthly salary, all posted in the last month. Guy works at a chain gym making maybe 30 grand a year, but he's living like he's pulling in 6 figures. Either he's dealing drugs or he's running some kind of scam. What kind of scam? The kind where he charges clients for private training sessions and doesn't report the income. I followed him yesterday to 3 different houses. Rich housewives paying cash for personal fitness consultations. I studied the photos. Troy flexing in gym mirrors, Troy with his arm around different women at various restaurants, Troy showing off his Jeep like it was a Ferrari. The guy was a walking cliché of small-time hustle and big-time ego. "There's more," Adam said. "I talked to Mrs. Henderson this morning. She's been documenting Troy's visits to your house because she thought he was casing the neighborhood for burglaries. She's got dates, times, even license plate photos. Mrs. Henderson thinks everyone's a criminal." "Yeah, but this time she's right. Troy's been stealing from you, Jason. Not just your wife. Actual stealing. Mrs. Henderson saw him loading stuff into his Jeep Wednesday morning. That stopped me cold." "What kind of stuff?" "Tools from your garage. That expensive socket set you showed me last month. Some electronics. She's got photos." Adam handed me printouts from Mrs. Henderson's phone. Clear images of Troy carrying my tools, my small television from the garage, even my backup GPS unit. The son of a bitch wasn't just sleeping with Kelly, he was robbing me blind. "I'm going to eliminate him." "No, you're not. You're going to do something much worse. You're going to ruin him so completely that he'll wish you'd just kicked his ass and gotten it over with." Adam was right. Violence was messy, temporary, and satisfying for about 5 minutes. But a good revenge plot? That was a work of art. "What did you have in mind?" "First, we document everything. I mean everything. Every tool he's stolen, every law he's broken, every lie he's told. Then we start dismantling his life piece by piece. And Kelly? Kelly's the grand finale, but we start with Troy because he's the easier target. Guys like him always have something to hide. I spent the rest of the morning calling neighbors about the barbecue. Every conversation was the same. Initial surprise, followed by enthusiasm, followed by a carefully casual question about whether Kelly's trainer friend would be there. By noon, I'd invited 20 people and confirmed that my wife's affair was the worst-kept secret in suburban Texas. The only person who didn't know was me, and I wasn't supposed to know. Randy showed up at 2 o'clock, driving his beat-up pickup truck and carrying a toolbox that definitely didn't contain standard mechanic equipment. "So," he said, settling into a lawn chair in my backyard, "we're talking about the kind of problem that requires creative solutions? The kind where someone's been disrespecting my property and needs to learn some manners." "Ah, educational therapy, my specialty." Randy cracked open a beer and looked thoughtful. "What's the target?" "Red Jeep Wrangler, 2019. Owner's got an ego bigger than his brain and a habit of taking things that don't belong to him. Jeeps are tricky. Lots of security features these days, but nothing that can't be worked around by someone with the right knowledge and flexible ethics. I'm not asking you to steal it. Just modify it. Make it less reliable, more embarrassing." Randy's grin was pure evil. "Now you're speaking my language. When do we make our house call?" "Tonight. The owner works late on Fridays, doesn't get home until after 10. That gives us plenty of time to make some improvements." "What kind of improvements?" I pulled out my phone and showed Randy the photos of Troy with my stolen tools. The kind that teaches people not to take things that don't belong to them. Randy studied the images, his expression growing darker. "This guy's been stealing from you?" "Oh, hell no. We're not just modifying his ride. We're giving him a full educational experience. Nothing illegal, nothing that can be traced back to us. Just creative mechanical difficulties. Trust me, by the time I'm done with his precious Jeep, he's going to think he bought a lemon from Satan's used car lot." That evening, Kelly announced she was going out with Cassie for girls' night, probably code for meeting Troy and planning their next rendezvous while I was conveniently out of town. Too bad for them I wasn't scheduled to fly again until Tuesday. "Have fun," I said, kissing her goodbye and tasting more lies. "Don't stay out too late." "I won't. Love you. Love you too." The words felt like ash in my mouth, but I delivered them with perfect sincerity. Kelly had no idea she was married to someone who could fake a smile at 30,000 feet while dealing with engine failure. Acting normal while planning revenge was just another kind of emergency procedure. After she left, Adam and Randy came over to finalize our plans. We spread out maps of Troy's apartment complex, studied photos of his parking spot, and went over our timeline like we were planning a military operation. "Remember," I said, "we're not criminals. We're just concerned citizens helping someone learn about personal responsibility." "Right," Randy said, loading his toolbox into my truck. "Educational outreach." "Community service," Adam added. At 11:30, we drove to Riverside Apartments. Troy's red Jeep was parked in spot 247, gleaming under the parking lot lights like a monument to his own arrogance. The complex was quiet, most residents already asleep or settled in for the night. Randy worked like a surgeon, making subtle modifications that wouldn't be noticed until Troy tried to drive. A few drops of the right chemicals in the gas tank, some creative rewiring under the hood, adjustments to tire pressure that would cause interesting handling problems. "This is beautiful work," I whispered, watching Randy install something that looked like a small electronic device under the dashboard. "Remote-controlled horn," Randy explained. "Frequency matches garage door openers. Every time someone in this complex opens their garage, his horn's going to honk. That's diabolical. That's just the appetizer. Wait until he tries to start it tomorrow morning." We finished our work and drove home in satisfied silence. Phase 1 of Troy's education was complete. Soon he'd learn what happened when you stole from the wrong pilot. But as we pulled into my driveway, I saw Kelly's car already in the garage. She was home early from her girls' night, which meant she'd probably been with Troy instead of Cassie. The timeline was perfect. She'd left him just in time for us to pay his Jeep a visit. "Tomorrow's going to be interesting," Adam said. I looked at my house, where my cheating wife was probably already in bed, and smiled. Tomorrow's going to be educational. Saturday morning arrived with the sound of car horns honking in the distance. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "What the hell did you do to my Jeep?" I showed the message to Kelly, who was eating yogurt and scrolling through her phone. "Weird. Someone sent me an angry text about a Jeep. Wrong number, I guess." Kelly barely glanced up. "Probably some road rage thing." But I caught the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her grip tightened on her phone. She knew exactly whose Jeep was having problems, and she was trying to figure out if it was connected to me. The honking continued intermittently throughout the morning, punctuated by what sounded like someone repeatedly trying to start an engine that wouldn't cooperate. Randy's modifications were working perfectly. Around noon, Adam knocked on our door with a grin that could have powered the neighborhood. "Hey, Jason, Kelly. Beautiful day for a barbecue, isn't it?" "Perfect weather," I agreed. "Everything's ready except the grill. Want to help me set up?" In the backyard, Adam filled me in on the morning's entertainment. Troy's Jeep started honking at 6 a.m. when Mrs. Patterson opened her garage to get her newspaper, woke up half the complex. Then it wouldn't start, so he called a tow truck. Tow truck driver couldn't figure out what was wrong either. Mechanical problems are so frustrating. Gets better. While they were trying to diagnose the issue, his horn kept going off every time someone used a garage door opener within 2 blocks. Neighbors were not happy. I fired up the grill, imagining Troy's morning of automotive humiliation. Did he figure out it was sabotage? How could he? Randy's work looks like random electrical problems. Could happen to any vehicle with cheap aftermarket modifications. The guests started arriving around 2. Mrs. Henderson came early, carrying a casserole and a manila folder I suspected contained more surveillance photos. The Johnsons from down the street brought beer and knowing looks. The Martinez family showed up with their teenage kids, who immediately claimed the pool area. Everyone was friendly, normal, acting like this was just another neighborhood barbecue. But I could feel the undercurrent of anticipation. They all knew about Kelly and Troy. They were waiting to see what would happen. Kelly played the perfect hostess, chatting with neighbors, refilling drinks, laughing at jokes. She was good at this, maybe too good. I wondered how long she'd been practicing deception, how many lies I'd swallowed with my morning coffee over the years. Around 4 o'clock, Cassie Morrison arrived wearing too much makeup and a dress that was too tight for a backyard barbecue. She made a beeline for Kelly, and I watched them whisper urgently by the drinks table. "Jason," Mrs. Henderson appeared at my elbow with her folder. "We need to talk." "What's on your mind, Mrs. H?" "This." She opened the folder, revealing dozens of photos documenting Troy's visits to my house. I've been keeping records because I thought he was planning to rob the neighborhood. Turns out I was right, just not the way I expected. The photos were damning. Troy loading my tools into his Jeep. Troy carrying out electronics. Troy and Kelly kissing on my front porch. Troy leaving through my back door at various times over the past month. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because I think you already do know, and you're planning to do something about it." Mrs. Henderson was sharper than I'd given her credit for. "What makes you think that?" "Because you invited the whole neighborhood to a barbecue on 2 days' notice, and you've got that look in your eyes. The same look my late husband had when he caught the Johnson boy stealing tomatoes from our garden." "What happened to the Johnson boy?" "Let's just say he never stole another tomato from anyone." I was starting to like Mrs. Henderson more and more. "What would you do if you were in my situation?" I'd make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they were dealing with. Some lessons need to be taught publicly. She closed the folder and handed it to me. Consider this my contribution to your educational program. By 6 o'clock, the party was in full swing. Kids splashing in the pool, adults clustered around the grill and drinks table, everyone having a great time. Kelly was in her element, playing the role of devoted wife and gracious hostess. That's when I decided it was time for the evening's entertainment. "Hey, everyone," I called out, tapping a beer bottle with a fork to get attention. "Kelly and I wanted to thank you all for coming. It means so much to have such great neighbors." Polite applause, expectant faces. Kelly beamed beside me, probably thinking I was about to make some sappy speech about community and friendship. I thought it would be fun to share some recent memories with everyone. I set up a little slideshow on the projector screen. I'd rigged a laptop to the outdoor projector I used for movie nights, positioned so everyone in the backyard could see clearly. Kelly's smile faltered slightly. She hadn't known about any slideshow. "Just some candid shots from around the neighborhood," I continued, clicking to the first image. "You know how it is. You never know what you might capture." The first photo appeared on the screen. Troy's red Jeep in my driveway, taken from Mrs. Henderson's collection. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "This is Troy Banks," I said conversationally. "Kelly's personal trainer. He's been helping her with her fitness routine while I've been traveling for work." Kelly's face had gone white. "Jason, what are you doing?" "Just sharing some neighborhood candids, honey." "Look, here's another one." Click. Troy carrying my tools out of my garage, timestamp clearly visible. Apparently, Troy's been helping himself to some of my equipment. Very thoughtful of him to borrow things while I was away. The crowd was silent now, all eyes shifting between the screen, me, and Kelly. Cassie had moved closer to her friend, but even she looked shocked. "Jason, stop this," Kelly hissed. "This is humiliating." "Oh, we're just getting started. Here's my personal favorite." Click. The image from my home security system. Kelly greeting Troy at the front door in her black lingerie, the timestamp showing Tuesday afternoon while I was in Boston. Gasps from the crowd. Someone's drink hit the patio with a crash. "Kelly's been very dedicated to her fitness routine," I continued, my voice perfectly calm. "Really going above and beyond with her trainer." "You bastard!" Kelly lunged for the laptop, but Adam smoothly intercepted her. "Let's see what other fitness activities they've been up to." Click, click, click. More photos, more timestamps, more evidence of my wife's betrayal displayed in high definition for the entire neighborhood to witness. Kelly, in my flight jacket, kissing Troy goodbye. Troy leaving through the back door at midnight. Kelly and Troy in my kitchen, in my living room, in my garage. "Jason, please," Kelly was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Please stop." "Why? I thought you'd want to share your fitness journey with everyone. You've certainly shared everything else." The final image was the best. Kelly and Troy in my truck, parked at the lake, clearly visible through the windshield in a compromising position. Mrs. Henderson had outdone herself with that shot. "And that concludes our slideshow," I announced. "I hope everyone enjoyed getting to know our neighbors a little better." The silence stretched for about 10 seconds before Mrs. Henderson started clapping slowly. Then Randy joined in. Then Adam. Soon the entire backyard was applauding while Kelly sobbed and Cassie tried to comfort her. "You're all sick," Cassie shouted. "This is cruel and humiliating." "You're right," I said. "Humiliation is exactly what it is. The question is, who deserves to be humiliated here?" Kelly ran into the house, slamming the sliding door behind her. Cassie followed, shooting me a look that could have melted steel. The party broke up quickly after that, but not before several neighbors stopped to shake my hand or pat my shoulder. Mrs. Henderson lingered the longest. "That was beautifully done," she said. "Your wife won't be able to show her face in this neighborhood for months." "That's the idea. What about the trainer?" I smiled, thinking about Randy's modifications to Troy's Jeep. "Oh, Troy's education is just getting started." As the last guests left, I cleaned up the backyard and reflected on the evening's success. Phase 1 of Kelly's humiliation was complete. The entire neighborhood now knew exactly what kind of person she was. Her reputation was destroyed, her social circle shattered, her comfortable life as the perfect suburban wife officially over. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Kelly emerged from the house around 10, eyes red from crying, carrying a suitcase. "I'm going to stay with Cassie for a few days," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Good idea. Give us both some time to think." "Jason, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry." "You're right. It doesn't mean anything." She walked to her car, then turned back. "What happens now?" "Now you learn what it costs to betray someone who trusted you." After she left, I sat on my back patio with a beer and called Randy. "How'd the barbecue go?" he asked. "Better than expected. How's our friend Troy doing with his transportation issues?" "Last I heard, his Jeep was still at the shop. Mechanic can't figure out what's wrong with it. Keeps saying it's the strangest electrical problem he's ever seen." "Shame. A young man like that needs reliable transportation." "Don't worry. I've got more educational opportunities planned for him. By the time I'm done, he's going to think he's cursed." I looked at my house, now empty except for me and the dog. Tomorrow I'd start phase 2, dismantling Troy's life piece by piece. After that, I'd finish what I'd started with Kelly. They'd both learn that betraying a pilot was like ignoring safety protocols at 30,000 feet. Eventually, gravity always wins, and the landing is never pretty. But first, I was going to enjoy my beer and the beautiful silence of a neighborhood that now knew exactly who the real victims were. Sunday morning brought 3 developments that made my coffee taste like victory. First, Adam knocked on my door at 8 a.m. with news that Troy's Jeep had been towed from the repair shop to a different mechanic after the first guy gave up trying to fix Randy's mysterious electrical problems. Second, my phone buzzed with a text from Kelly. "We need to talk. This has gone too far." Third, Mrs. Henderson called to inform me that Cassie Morrison had been fielding angry calls all morning from neighbors who wanted to know if she'd known about Kelly's affair and why she hadn't warned anyone. "The Morrison girl's getting a taste of guilt by association," Mrs. Henderson reported with obvious satisfaction. "3 people have already asked me if we should reconsider her membership in the Neighborhood Watch Committee." I was starting to understand why her late husband had been so effective at dealing with tomato thieves. "What did you tell them?" "That people who enable cheaters are almost as bad as the cheaters themselves. Cassie Morrison knew what your wife was doing, and she kept quiet about it. That makes her complicit." After Mrs. Henderson hung up, I texted Kelly back. "We can talk when you're ready to be honest about everything. Until then, enjoy your stay at Cassie's." Then I called Randy to check on Troy's continuing automotive education. "Beautiful work yesterday," Randy said. "But wait until you hear about last night. Apparently, our friend tried to take an Uber to some bar, but the driver kicked him out after his phone kept making random emergency calls." "Emergency calls?" "That little device I installed? It's got multiple functions. Every time he gets a text or phone call, it triggers a 911 auto dial from his phone. Fire department showed up at the bar thinking someone was having a heart attack." "Randy, you're an artist." "I'm just getting warmed up. Today's lesson involves his apartment complex's laundry facilities and some very creative modifications to the washing machines." While Randy continued Troy's education in the consequences of theft, I focused on gathering intelligence for Phase 2. I drove to Muscle Beach Fitness, where Troy worked, and signed up for a membership consultation. The gym was exactly what I'd expected. Too much chrome, too loud music, and too many people taking selfies between sets. The manager, a middle-aged guy named Pete with arms like tree trunks, gave me the standard sales pitch while I asked carefully casual questions about the trainers. "Troy Banks? Yeah, he's one of our most popular instructors. Very dedicated. Very professional." "That's great to hear. I'm looking for someone reliable. Does he have a lot of private clients?" Pete's expression shifted slightly. "Well, Our trainers are only supposed to work with clients here at the facility. Insurance reasons, you understand? Of course. But hypothetically, if someone wanted additional training at home, hypothetically that would violate their employment contract and our insurance policy. We take that kind of thing very seriously. Perfect. Troy had been breaking the rules, and his boss was already suspicious about it. I completely understand. Liability issues can be a nightmare. I'm in aviation. We're very strict about following protocols. Aviation? What do you fly? Commercial airlines. Southwest, mostly domestic routes. Pete's face lit up. No kidding? My brother-in-law works for American. Says you guys are real sticklers for doing things by the book. Have to be. Shortcuts and rule-breaking get people eliminated in my business. Same here. Fitness industry's got its share of cowboys who think rules don't apply to them. Makes it hard for legitimate operations like ours. I spent another 20 minutes listening to Pete complain about trainers who worked off the books, clients who expected special treatment, and the challenges of running an honest business in a competitive market. By the time I left, I had a complete picture of Troy's employment situation and his boss's attitude toward rule breakers. Phase 2 was going to be easier than I'd thought. Monday morning, I called Muscle Beach and asked to speak with Pete about a concerning incident involving one of his trainers. This is regarding Troy Banks, I said. I'm calling because I witnessed something over the weekend that I think you should know about. What kind of incident? I saw Mr. Banks conducting what appeared to be a private training session at a residence in my neighborhood. The client was paying him cash, and he specifically mentioned that the gym didn't need to know about their arrangement. Silence on the other end then. Can you give me more details about what you witnessed? I provided Pete with dates, times, and descriptions of Troy's off-the-books training sessions, all of which Adam had documented during his surveillance. I also mentioned the expensive lifestyle Troy was flaunting on social media despite his modest gym salary. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, I concluded. But as someone who works in an industry where following regulations is literally a matter of everything, I thought you should be aware of potential liability issues. I appreciate you calling, Pete said, his voice grim. We'll look into this immediately. Phase 2 was now in motion. By the time Pete finished his investigation, Troy would be looking for a new job. Tuesday brought news that Kelly had returned to our house while I was at work, packed more clothes, and left a note asking me to call her. Instead, I called my lawyer. I need to discuss divorce proceedings, I told him. Adultery, theft of marital property, the works. Do you have documentation? Enough to wallpaper the courthouse. Wednesday morning, Adam reported that Troy had been fired from Muscle Beach Fitness after Pete discovered evidence of unauthorized private training sessions and unreported income. Pete didn't just fire him, Adam said. He also reported Troy to the state licensing board for violating professional ethics standards. Guy's going to have trouble getting hired at any legitimate gym in Texas. What about his apartment? Funny you should ask. Apparently the laundry room flooded yesterday after someone tampered with the washing machines. Troy's apartment is on the ground floor, right next to the laundry facility. His place got soaked. Randy's handiwork was becoming legendary. Thursday evening, Kelly finally called. Jason, please. We need to talk face to face. This has gotten completely out of control. Has it? Seems pretty controlled to me. You've destroyed my reputation, humiliated me in front of our neighbors, and now Cassie says people are blaming her for not telling them about my affair. You've hurt innocent people. Innocent. Kelly, you've been cheating on me for weeks, stealing from our joint accounts to pay for your affair and letting your boyfriend rob our house. The only innocent person in this situation is me. I never stole from our accounts. Really? Because I've got bank records showing cash withdrawals that correspond exactly with your dates with Troy. 500 here, 300 there. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Silence. Then quietly. I was going to pay it back. With what money? The cash you were making from Troy's private training sessions that you helped him book with your gym friends? More silence. I'd hit another nerve. That's right, Kelly. I know about that too. You weren't just cheating with Troy. You were his business partner, taking a cut of his off-the-books income in exchange for referrals and scheduling assistance. How do you know all this? Because I'm not the clueless husband you thought you married. I'm a commercial pilot, Kelly. My job is to notice when systems aren't working properly and fix them before they cause a crash. You and Troy were a system malfunction, and I've been fixing the problem. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose to betray our marriage, steal our money, and humiliate me. Now, you get to live with the results of those choices. And Troy? Troy's learning that stealing from people has consequences too. His education is progressing nicely. Friday brought the news I'd been waiting for. Troy had been evicted from his water-damaged apartment after falling behind on rent. His Jeep was still in the shop, costing him more money he didn't have. And Pete from Muscle Beach had filed a formal complaint with the Better Business Bureau about Troy's unethical business practices. Guy's basically unemployable now, Adam reported. Word's gotten around to every gym in the area. Plus, his landlord's threatening to sue him for the water damage. How's Kelly handling the situation? According to Cassie's Facebook posts, not well. Apparently Kelly's been crying non-stop and talking about moving back to her mother's house in Oklahoma. Oklahoma. That would solve several problems at once. Saturday morning I was working in my garage when a red Jeep pulled into my driveway. Troy climbed out, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 1 week. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, his confident swagger replaced by desperate determination. "We need to talk," he said. I set down my wrench and looked at him. "Do we?" "You did this. You destroyed my life. I didn't do anything except document your criminal behavior and report it to the appropriate authorities. If your life is destroyed, it's because you built it on lies and theft." "I never stole anything from you." I walked over to his Jeep and looked in the back seat. My socket set was sitting right there, along with my backup GPS unit and the small television from my garage. "Really? Because that's my property in your vehicle." Troy's face went red. "Kelly said I could borrow that stuff." "Kelly doesn't own my tools. She can't give permission for you to take things that belong to me. That's called theft, Troy." "Look, I'll give everything back. We can forget this whole thing happened." "Can we forget that you've been sleeping with my wife in my house, eating my food, driving my truck, and stealing my property? Can we forget that you've been taking money from our joint account to fund your little side business?" That was Kelly's money, too. Actually, it wasn't. Kelly hasn't worked in 2 years. Every dollar in that account came from my job. You've been living off my income while screwing my wife. How does that feel, Troy? He took a step toward me, fists clenched. "You son of a bitch." Careful. We're standing in my driveway, in full view of my neighbors, many of whom witnessed your criminal behavior at my barbecue last Saturday. Any assault you commit here will be recorded, documented, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Troy looked around and noticed Mrs. Henderson standing on her porch, with her phone out, obviously recording our conversation. Adam was washing his car, but clearly listening to every word. "This isn't over," Troy said. "Yes, it is. You're going to return my property, stay away from my wife, and disappear from my life. If I see you again, if you contact Kelly again, if you so much as drive down my street again, I'll have you arrested for stalking and harassment." "You can't do that." "Watch me. I'm a commercial pilot with a spotless record, no criminal history, and a neighborhood full of witnesses to your criminal behavior. You're an unemployed ex-gym trainer with a history of theft and fraud. Who do you think the police are going to believe?" Troy stared at me for a long moment, then started unloading my property from his Jeep. When he finished, he got back in his vehicle and drove away without another word. I never saw him again. That evening, Kelly called one last time. "Troy's leaving town," she said. "He says you threatened him." I explained his legal situation and helped him make an informed decision about his future. Very educational. "What happens now, Jason?" Now you decide whether you want to stay in Texas and deal with the consequences of your choices, or whether you'd prefer to start over somewhere else, somewhere far away. Are you asking me to leave? I'm telling you that our marriage is over, our house is going on the market, and our joint assets are being divided according to Texas law. What you do after that is up to you. I could fight you in court. With what lawyer? What money? Based on what evidence? Kelly, I've got documentation of your adultery, your theft, and your business partnership with a criminal. You've got nothing except the clothes in your suitcase and whatever sympathy Cassie hasn't used up defending you to the neighbors. 2 weeks later, Kelly moved back to Oklahoma. Cassie Morrison put her house up for sale and moved to Arizona, apparently tired of being associated with the neighborhood adultery scandal. I kept the house, the dog, and my dignity. Most importantly, I kept the respect of my neighbors, who now knew exactly what happened when someone betrayed Jason Miller's trust. The whole experience taught me something valuable about human nature. People will forgive almost anything except being made to look foolish. Kelly and Troy hadn't just betrayed me. They'd made me look like a fool in front of my community. Their punishment fit their crime perfectly. They'd humiliated me privately, so I'd humiliated them publicly. They'd stolen from me financially, so I'd destroyed their financial stability. They'd broken my trust, so I'd broken their lives. Some people might call that cruel. I called it justice. 3 months after Kelly moved to Oklahoma, I thought my revenge was complete. The house was quiet. The neighborhood had moved on to newer gossip, and I'd settled into a comfortable routine of work, weekend barbecues with actual friends, and evenings spent reading on my back patio without worrying about what lies my wife was telling or what my property was being stolen. Then Cassie Morrison came back to town. I was mowing my lawn on a Saturday morning when Adam jogged over with news that made me shut off the mower and pay attention. "Cassie's back," he said. "Saw her car at the Henderson place this morning. Mrs. H looked like she'd seen a ghost." "What's she doing here? I thought she moved to Arizona." Apparently the Arizona thing didn't work out. Word is she's broke, couldn't find work, and had to move back in with her parents. But here's the interesting part. She's been telling people that you destroyed her life unfairly. Unfairly? She's claiming she didn't know about Kelly's affair, that she was just as shocked as everyone else, and that you ruined her reputation for no reason. I started the mower again, but my mind was racing. Cassie was rewriting history, trying to paint herself as another victim of my cruel revenge plot. The problem was, some people might believe her. "There's more," Adam said, raising his voice over the engine noise. "She's been talking to people about getting back at you, says you need to learn what it feels like to have your life destroyed by lies." I shut off the mower again. "What kind of lies?" "The kind that could cause problems with your job. She's been asking questions about airline policies regarding pilots with domestic disputes, criminal accusations, that sort of thing." That got my full attention. My pilot's license was my livelihood, my identity, my entire career. If Cassie started spreading rumors about criminal behavior or domestic violence, it could trigger an investigation that would ground me even if the accusations were false. She wouldn't dare. She's desperate, Jason. Desperate people do stupid things. Adam was right. Cassie had lost her house, her job, her social standing, and her best friend because of her association with Kelly's affair. From her perspective, I was the villain who destroyed her life for something that wasn't her fault. The fact that she'd actively helped Kelly cover up the affair, provided alibis for her girls' nights with Troy, and even helped schedule some of Troy's private training sessions through her gym connections apparently didn't matter. In Cassie's revised version of events, she was innocent. What do you think she'll do? I think she'll try to file false reports. Domestic violence, stalking, harassment, anything that might get you suspended pending investigation. Those accusations would be easy to disprove. Sure, eventually. But how long would that take? Weeks? Months? And what would happen to your job while the investigation was ongoing? I'd seen pilots grounded for less. The airline industry didn't take chances with personnel who might be liability risks. Even false accusations could result in suspension pending resolution, and resolution could take months if Cassie was smart about how she filed her complaints. We need to stop her before she starts. What did you have in mind? I looked at my house, my neighborhood, the life I'd worked so hard to rebuild after Kelly's betrayal. Cassie Morrison was threatening all of it with her lies and self-serving rewrite of history. We're going to remind Cassie why she left town in the first place, and we're going to make sure she remembers that lesson permanently. That afternoon, I drove to Mrs. Henderson's house and knocked on her door. She answered wearing an expression that could have frozen hell. "I suppose you heard about our unwelcome visitor," she said. "I heard. What's she been telling you?" "Lies, mostly. Claims she didn't know about your wife's affair. Says you destroyed her reputation unfairly. Wants to know if I'll support her story that you're some kind of dangerous stalker." "What did you tell her?" Mrs. Henderson smiled like a shark. "I told her I had extensive documentation of her involvement in covering up the affair, including recorded phone conversations, where she provided alibis for your wife's meetings with that trainer." "You recorded phone conversations?" "Honey, I've been recording conversations with suspicious neighbors for 20 years. You never know when you'll need evidence of someone's criminal behavior." Mrs. Henderson was turning out to be the best neighbor I'd ever had. "What kind of evidence do you have on Cassie?" "Enough to prove she was actively helping your wife cheat. Phone records, text messages, even a recording of her bragging to another neighbor about how clever she was at providing cover stories for Kelly's affairs." "Affairs? Plural?" "Oh, yes. Troy wasn't the first. There was a yoga instructor last year, and before that, some guy she met at a wine tasting. Cassie helped cover up all of them." The revelation hit me like turbulence at cruising altitude. Kelly hadn't just cheated with Troy, she'd been serial adulteress, and Cassie had been her accomplice for years. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I thought you knew, and because I figured you'd find out eventually when you were ready to dig deeper." "I'm ready now?" Mrs. Henderson invited me in and showed me her files. The woman was a one-person intelligence agency with documentation going back 3 years. Photos, recordings, detailed notes about suspicious activities throughout the neighborhood. Kelly's pattern was clear. She'd find a target, usually someone from her gym or social circle, begin an affair while I was traveling, and use Cassie as her alibi and logistics coordinator. The affairs typically lasted 2 to 3 months before Kelly moved on to someone new. "Your wife was a predator," Mrs. Henderson said bluntly, "and Cassie Morrison was her enabler. They destroyed at least 3 marriages that I know of, broke up 2 long-term relationships, and caused one man to lose his job when his wife found out about the affair." One man lost his job? The yoga instructor. His wife was his business partner. When she found out he was sleeping with your wife, she divorced him and took half the yoga studio. He had to sell his share and move to Dallas. I stared at the documentation, feeling sick. Kelly and Cassie hadn't just betrayed me. They'd been running a systematic operation that destroyed families and relationships throughout our community. "Cassie Morrison isn't a victim," Mrs. Henderson continued. "She's a co-conspirator who's trying to escape consequences by rewriting history. But I've got evidence that proves her involvement in every single affair." "What do you want to do with this information?" "I want to make sure she understands that coming back here was a mistake. And I want to make sure she never tries to hurt you or anyone else in this neighborhood again." That evening, Adam, Mrs. Henderson, and I met in my backyard to plan Cassie's final education in the consequences of enabling adultery. "The key is making this public," Mrs. Henderson said. "Cassie's power came from operating in secret, helping your wife cover up her affairs. If we expose the full scope of their operation, she'll have no credibility left to attack you with." "What did you have in mind?" "A neighborhood meeting. Tomorrow night, my house. I'll invite everyone who was affected by Kelly and Cassie's activities over the past 3 years. We'll present the evidence and let the community decide how to handle the situation." That seems harsh. Jason, this woman is threatening your career and your reputation with false accusations. She's counting on people forgetting or not knowing the full extent of her involvement in destroying marriages and families. We're just going to refresh their memories. Adam nodded. Plus, if she sees that the entire neighborhood knows the truth about her activities, she'll realize that filing false reports against you would backfire spectacularly. The next evening, Mrs. Henderson's living room was packed with neighbors I hadn't seen since my barbecue 3 months earlier. The mood was tense, expectant, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Mrs. Henderson had prepared a presentation that would have impressed a federal prosecutor. Photos, timelines, phone records, even financial documentation showing how Cassie had profited from her role as Kelly's accomplice. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mrs. Henderson began, "we're here tonight because someone is trying to rewrite history and escape accountability for actions that damaged our entire community." She walked through the evidence methodically, showing how Kelly and Cassie had operated their affair coordination business for years. The room grew quieter as the scope of their activities became clear. The Morrison girl wasn't an innocent bystander, Mrs. Henderson concluded. She was an active participant who helped destroy at least 6 marriages and relationships in this neighborhood alone. When she finished, the room erupted in angry voices. People who'd thought Kelly was just a cheating wife now understood they'd been dealing with something much more systematic and destructive. "Where is Cassie now?" someone asked. "Staying with her parents on Maple Street," Mrs. Henderson replied. "And she's been telling people she plans to file criminal complaints against Jason Miller for stalking and harassment." "That's ridiculous," Randy said. "Jason's the victim here, not the perpetrator." "We all know that," Mrs. Henderson agreed. "But Cassie's counting on people outside this neighborhood not knowing the full story. She thinks she can destroy Jason's reputation and career with false accusations." The crowd's anger shifted from Kelly to Cassie. People began sharing their own stories of suspicious activities they'd noticed, lies they'd been told, damage they'd suffered from the affairs Kelly and Cassie had facilitated. "What are we going to do about this?" Mrs. Martinez asked. Mrs. Henderson smiled. "We're going to make sure Cassie Morrison understands that this community doesn't tolerate people who destroy families and then try to escape consequences by attacking their victims." The next morning, Cassie Morrison found her parents' front yard decorated with signs reading "Home of a Marriage Wrecker" and "Adultery Accomplice Lives Here." Their mailbox was covered with printouts of Mrs. Henderson's evidence, and their driveway was chalked with messages like "Cassie destroys families" and "Ask Cassie about her affair business." By noon, Cassie's parents had received visits from 6 different neighbors, all of whom shared detailed accounts of how Cassie had helped destroy their marriages or relationships. By evening, Cassie Morrison was gone. Her parents told Mrs. Henderson she'd decided to move to California to start fresh somewhere new. I never heard from her again. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Kelly. She was working as a waitress in Tulsa, living in a studio apartment, and struggling to make ends meet. She'd heard about Cassie's failed attempt to return to Texas, and wanted to make sure I knew she had no intention of causing me any more trouble. "I know I destroyed our marriage and hurt a lot of people," she wrote. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, just want you to know that I've learned my lesson, and I won't be bothering you or our old neighbors again." I threw the letter away without finishing it. 6 months later, I was promoted to senior pilot and assigned to international routes. The pay increase let me renovate the house, take better vacations, and build the kind of life I'd always wanted but never had while supporting a cheating wife. Adam became my best friend and regular barbecue partner. Mrs. Henderson became the neighborhood's unofficial security chief, keeping watch over everyone's property and relationships with the dedication of a professional bodyguard. Randy continued working as my mechanic and occasional partner in creative problem-solving, though we never again had to apply his special talents to anyone's vehicle. The neighborhood settled into a peaceful routine, free from the drama and destruction that Kelly and Cassie had brought to our community for years. I learned something important from the whole experience. Revenge isn't about getting even. It's about restoring balance. Kelly and Cassie had disrupted the natural order of trust and loyalty that holds communities together. My response had simply corrected that disruption and restored the balance. Some people called it cruel. I called it justice. Some people said I'd gone too far. I said I'd gone exactly as far as necessary. Some people suggested I should have been more forgiving. I suggested they should try being betrayed by someone they trusted and see how forgiving they felt. The truth is, I slept better at night knowing that Kelly and Cassie had learned there were consequences for their actions. I worked better, knowing my reputation and career were safe from false accusations. I lived better, knowing my community was protected from people who made a hobby of destroying other people's relationships. And every time I flew over Texas on my way to international destinations, I looked down at my neighborhood and smiled, knowing that sometimes the good guys really do win. But the best part of the whole experience was the lesson I'd taught myself. I was stronger, smarter, and more capable than I'd ever imagined. When my world fell apart, I didn't just survive, I rebuilt it better than it had been before. Kelly and Troy and Cassie had all underestimated me, thinking I was just another clueless husband who could be betrayed and humiliated without consequences. They learned better. And that education was worth every moment of planning, every hour of surveillance, every carefully orchestrated humiliation I'd put them through. In the end, they got exactly what they deserved. A complete understanding of what happens when you betray someone who refuses to be a victim.